Helena had always been passionate about art. Her world was painted in vibrant hues, even though, deep down, she felt stuck in an uninspired rut. At 22, studying art at college, Helena was a young woman full of dreams who had yet to find the courage to pursue them. However, in recent months, constant fatigue, body aches, and loss of appetite began to take their toll on her. Friends and family attributed these signs to the stress of studying. But Helena knew something else was wrong. On that gray day, Helena sat in the waiting room of the doctor's office, staring at her restless hands. The room was cold, and the ticking of the clock on the wall only increased her anxiety. Finally, the doctor called her. He was a middle-aged man with tired eyes who had delivered devastating news many times before. "Helena, the results are in. And I need you to be prepared for what I'm going to say." The diagnosis came like a punch in the stomach. A terminal, rare, and aggressive disease. The doctor explained the details with a practical coldness, trying to soften the blow, but the words were lost amid Helena's whirlwind of thoughts. Advanced stage cancer, with no clear treatment options that could offer more than a few months of life. She listened, but her mind was already elsewhere. Suddenly, the world around Helena became a blurry painting, and everything seemed surreal. What would she do with the little time she had left? How could she tell her parents, or Lucas, her best friend who knew her better than anyone? Fear gripped her heart, but she also felt a spark of determination, something that surprised her. There was still life to live, and she wasn't willing to give up without fighting for moments that were worth it. Helena left the office in silence, feeling the weight of the news pressing down on her shoulders. The late afternoon sun blinded her as she walked through the streets, lost in thought. When she got home, she locked herself in her room and cried until her eyes were swollen. But when the tears dried, a thought began to gain strength. What she would do now was a choice that only she could make. That night, Helena took an old notebook and began to scribble frantically. Between unfinished lists and torn-out pages, an idea emerged that would change the course of her last days. A list of wishes. Things she had always wanted to do, but had never had the courage to do. It was time to live without fear, without regrets, and each item crossed off would be a small victory against time. The first thing she wrote was simple but powerful: to live the best summer of my life. The following days were silent for Helena. She woke up early and spent the mornings bent over the notebook, sketching out the details of her list. The fear was still there, looming like a shadow, but Helena refused to be consumed by it. She decided not to tell anyone about the diagnosis, at least for now. Those moments were hers, an intimate secret that made her feel like she still had some control over her life. Lucas, her best friend, noticed the change. Helena, normally so outgoing, now seemed to be always distant, lost in thought. They met at a cafe near the college, one of her favorite places, where they spent hours discussing art and improbable futures. Lucas watched her, looking for clues, but Helena was determined to maintain her facade of normality. "Are you okay, Helena?" he asked, frowning as he watched his friend stir her spoon in her coffee without actually drinking it. "I am just thinking about life, you know?" She forced a smile, but Lucas didn't seem convinced. Still, he respected her silence, deciding that if she needed to, she would speak up. As the days passed, Helena began to cross off the first items on her list. She decided that each weekend would be an adventure, a chance to experience something new. The first wish she fulfilled was a hot air balloon ride, something she had always been afraid to do. As she soared into the sky, with the wind blowing in her face and the sun tinting the horizon orange, Helena felt a freedom she hadn't experienced in a long time. For a moment, there was no pain, no fear. Just the immensity of the sky and the feeling that anything was possible. Lucas followed her without question. To him, it was just another one of Helena's impulsive ideas, one of the things he admired most about her. They laughed, took pictures and lived that moment as if time were in no hurry. As she crosses off the items on her list, Helena feels a mix of joy and sadness. Each small victory reminds her of what is yet to come, but it also fills her with unexpected strength. She still has a lot to do, and although the shadow of illness follows her, Helena clings to the feeling that she is finally living the way she always wanted. Lucas is by her side, the only safe haven in a sea of uncertainty. And so, Helena continues. Because for her, the most important thing now is to live each day as if it were her last, and not let fear define the end of her story. Helena knew that time was her enemy, but she refused to give in to despair. Her wish list grew, as did the intensity with which she lived each day. The weeks passed quickly, and Helena began to accomplish some of the most challenging items on her list, always with Lucas by her side, even though he didn't know the real reason behind her urgency. One of Helena's most ambitious desires was to jump off a cliff on the coast. They traveled to a secluded beach, where the sea met the rocks in strong, majestic waves. When she reached the top, Helena felt her heart beat faster, not only from fear, but also from the excitement of finally being there. Lucas, noticing her hesitation, joked, "Are you sure you want to do this? We don't have to prove anything to anyone." Helena smiled, trying to hide her anxiety. "I need to do this, Lucas. I need to feel alive." Without waiting for an answer, she took off and jumped, feeling the cold wind against her skin and the adrenaline taking over. When she finally emerged from the water, she screamed with joy, feeling invincible, even if only for a brief moment. The days of adventure, however, were not enough to erase the emotional wounds that Helena carried. One of them was related to the distant relationship with her father. After her parents separated, when Helena was just a teenager, the bond with her father had weakened. He moved to another city and, over the years, their conversations became rare and formal. Determined to settle the past, Helena plucked up the courage to visit him. The reunion was initially tense, with awkward silences and short sentences. However, Helena's desire to reconnect was stronger. Sitting on the porch of her father's house, she finally opened her heart, revealing the hurts she had been holding since adolescence. To her surprise, he also expressed his regret for not having been more present. The conversation was a relief for both of them, and when Helena left her father's house that afternoon, she felt lighter. She knew there was no way to make up for lost time, but she had achieved something precious: peace. As she crossed off another item on her list, Helena realized that, in addition to adventures, forgiveness and reconciliation were essential parts of her journey. Lucas, unaware of the depth of Helena's changes, continued to accompany her in her little follies, laughing with her, supporting her decisions, and believing that they were just enjoying their youth. But for Helena, each new experience was a small victory against time and a way to leave fewer regrets behind. Helena and Lucas became inseparable that summer. Each day was a new adventure, a new item crossed off the list, and Helena felt that, for the first time, she was living intensely, without fear of tomorrow. However, as the moments shared accumulated, Helena's feelings for Lucas, which she had always kept hidden, began to overflow. It wasn't just friendship. It was love. A silent, bittersweet love, fueled by the urgency of time running out. One warm afternoon, after a day at the beach, Helena and Lucas decided to go to the city park, where they used to spend hours drawing when they were younger. Sitting on the grass, under the soft light of the sunset, their usual easy laughter gave way to a comforting stillness. Lucas looked at Helena with a mixture of affection and concern, noticing how different she seemed, more introspective, but also more alive. "You know you can tell me anything, don't you?" Lucas asked, breaking the silence. Helena looked away, trying to contain the emotion that threatened to overflow. She wanted to tell him everything. The diagnosis, the fear, why she was living each day as if it were her last. But the words wouldn't come. Instead, Helena leaned in and kissed him, unexpectedly and urgently, as if that gesture could express everything she felt. Lucas kissed her back, confused but caught up in the intensity of the moment. In the days that followed, their relationship changed. There were more subtle touches, looks that said more than any words, and a silent understanding that something profound was happening. Lucas, however, remained oblivious to the silent battle Helena was waging against time. Then, one night, Helena had a breakdown. The pain she had been hiding from everyone finally got the better of her. She fainted in her apartment while painting one of the paintings she hoped to leave as a legacy. Lucas found her hours later, weak and disoriented, and took her immediately to the hospital. It was there, amidst tears and despair, that Helena could no longer hide the truth. "I'm dying, Lucas," she whispered, her voice breaking and her eyes brimming with tears. The silence that followed was heavy. Lucas, paralyzed by the revelation, felt the ground disappear beneath his feet. Everything began to make sense. The adventures, the lists, the smile that hid so much pain. He wanted to scream, but he just held Helena's hand, promising himself that he would be by her side until the end. And so, the love between them was transformed. It was no longer just a friendship or a summer romance. It became a silent promise to live the little time that remained as intensely and truly as possible, together, without fear of what was to come. The weeks that followed the revelation were the most difficult. Lucas and Helena began to share an even greater intimacy, now permeated by conversations about the future they would not have together and about the past that Helena was determined to leave behind. Each new day was a fragile gift, and Helena, aware of the time that was running out, decided to create something that would immortalize everything she had experienced during that unforgettable summer. One last painting, the most important of her life. Helena's makeshift studio, which had previously been just a small corner of her apartment, now seemed to take on a life of its own. The canvases scattered across the floor and the walls covered in vibrant brushstrokes reflected a whirlwind of emotions. Helena decided to paint what she felt, the joy of her adventures, the silent pain of her illness, and most importantly, the love she had found in Lucas. Each color had a meaning: the blue of the sky on the day of the cliff jump, the red of passion and urgency, the gold of the sunlight that bathed her happiest memories. Lucas would stay by her side as she painted, watching every movement of the brush. He knew that this painting was more than a work of art. It was a silent farewell. Helena poured her soul into each stroke, and sometimes tears would flow without her realizing it. Painting became a kind of therapy, a refuge where she could process everything she was experiencing. One night, as the painting was finally taking shape, Helena and Lucas had a conversation that sealed everything they had been through together. Sitting side by side, she talked about her hopes, her fears, and how, despite everything, she had found peace with him. "You were the best gift this summer," Helena said, smiling through her tears. "I don't know how I would have gotten through all of this without you." Lucas squeezed her hand, unable to contain his emotion. "I would do it all over again, Helena. Every moment, every second, was worth it to be with you." When the painting was finished, Helena felt a peace she had not felt in a long time. She knew that the time to leave was near, but her heart was at peace. The last painting was her declaration to the world, proof that, even in the face of death, she had lived, loved and expressed herself fully. And so, Helena signed her name in the corner of the canvas, knowing that this would be her legacy, a last message to everyone she loved. Helena's time was running out. A few days after finishing her last painting, her body finally succumbed to the disease. She passed away on a peaceful morning at home, next to Lucas, with a serene smile on her face and the certainty that she had lived life to the fullest until the end. For Lucas, the loss was devastating, but he knew that Helena had left in peace, without regrets. Among Helena's belongings, Lucas found a letter addressed to him, written in a soft, hesitant handwriting. In the letter, Helena thanked him for everything they had experienced together that summer. She spoke of the importance of enjoying every moment, even if the future was uncertain. "Don't mourn my passing," she said. "I had the best summer of my life, and that was enough." Determined to honor Helena's memory, Lucas organized an exhibition of her paintings, including the last painting she had ever done. The exhibition was held in a small but meaningful gallery, where the colors of the canvases told the story of a young woman who refused to let life pass her by without being lived. Friends, family, and strangers gathered to view the works, moved by the intensity of the emotions that Helena had captured. In the center of the room, Helena's last painting stood like a centerpiece. It was a mix of vibrant and somber colors, a representation of her journey. The adventures, the love, the pain, and the acceptance. Lucas watched people's reactions to the painting, seeing in them a reflection of the impact Helena had on the lives of everyone she crossed paths with. She had left an indelible mark, a reminder that living life to the fullest was the best way to withstand the passing of time. A few days after the exhibition, Lucas went to the cliff where Helena had jumped that summer. The sea was calm, and the sound of the waves seemed to bring back the laughter and cries of freedom that Helena had let out there. He sat on the edge, holding a flower, and looked out at the horizon. "You did it, Helena," he whispered, feeling a gentle breeze touch his face as if it were a final embrace. He threw the flower into the sea, watching it float until it disappeared into the deep waters, taking with it the promise to live each day as Helena had lived the last summer of her life, with courage, intensity, and love. And there, on that cliff, Lucas realized that, although Helena was no longer physically present, her legacy would continue to inspire everyone to never stop searching for that which made them feel truly alive.